Welcome everybody to Within the Game. If you're new here, what we do is we try to uncover really the game that's played within the game between coaches and coordinators at the NFL level. Take a look at individual players sometimes and see what it is that they do that allows them to be so productive. And this week, we're going to be taking a look at the Carolina Panthers and how they committed cat-on-cat violence on national television to the tune of 320 yards against the Detroit Lions. We're going to be taking a look at each and every explosive run that the Panthers had, figuring out how they did it, and seeing if it's sustainable as they make a push for the playoffs. With that, let's get into it. Okay, so for this first play that we're going to look at, we're going to have a pretty simple split zone counter sweep. And there are a couple of things that I want to talk about here, but I'll go ahead and let it play through first so we can see what we're talking about, and then we'll take a minute to break it down. All right. So, first things first. I appreciate the use of motion here, as I think it really sells to the play fake. So, again, we're going to have, I've covered this in other videos, so we're not going to get into the ins and outs of this, but we've got the zone is the root of the play, all right, and then counter and counter sweep are kind of counter punches that you can put on as wrinkles to just give one guy a different job or two guys a different job. Everybody else does the same thing, but now the defense has a whole new set of problems to face. So anyway, we get this motion from Laviska coming across in combination with the line all moving that way. Now the defense has got to be really worried that either we're going to get a jet sweep to Viska, maybe a quick flat off of the motion or something like that, or we're just going to have +1 in the run game on this side. So when they see that pre-snap and then they see the offensive line moving to our left on screen, they got to start hustling to get over there. Now we're going to layer this Ian Thomas piece of this on top. So first things first, and we're going to come to this in just a second on one of the next clips that we're going to look at. But a simple split zone would be taking everything that I just said and bringing this off-ball tight end across the formation to kick out this unblocked edge, because if everybody's reaching this way, he's unblocked, right? So what we're going to see is a really good head fake. You know, I try to tell my players all the time, play like, you know, on plays that are these wrinkles, these counter punches and things like that. Pretend in your mind, imagine that you're running that play that we want this to look like until the last second. And Ian does a really good job of that. So he's going to run straight at Hutchinson. Hutchinson's going to think that he's about to catch a shoulder right in the jaw here. So he's going to have to pinch this down even more, A, so that he has some momentum and doesn't just get lit up. And B, because he wants to squeeze this gap down as much as he can. And so we're going to see this little head fake from Ian right in there. I love it. And then we just go past Hutchinson so that we don't even need to block him. He takes himself out of the play. And then McAdoo does a good job of getting Ian into a more favorable matchup on a cornerback instead of a defensive end. All right, play number 2 is going to be a split zone counter without the sweep aspect of it. So once again, I'll let this play through and then we'll take a look at it from the other angle here. All right, first things first. I think that the first play set this up well, and I think that there are a lot of things that we do with our boot action game. Granted, it's kind of boring, and it seems like we're really not asking Sam to do much in the passing game and just as a quarterback in general. However, the fact that we do so many of those plays, that we run so many of those plays, getting, like, for example, where Ian might block this guy and then flare out, we're gonna see that Rodrigo from Hard Knocks here is going to be afraid of that basically, and he's over pursuing a little bit. Either that, or if we're taking a look at the last play where we ended up coming out here, Rodrigo's afraid, well, we might be getting a sweep, we might be getting a quick flat to Laviska right here, so he's going to over pursue and create this gap. So we're just watching Viska and Rodrigo over pursues. All right, good stuff. Let's go back one more time. All right. So the other thing that I wanted to point out is going to be Bradley Bozeman in particular. So we're going to see, right, so if we are zone this way, we're reaching towards 96, and then if he ends up going this way on the other side so that he's head up or outside of the guard now, well, then it's our job to peel off and find a backer, find some work. And I wholeheartedly believe that this play worked entirely because Bozeman does such a good job finding work at the second level. That block on 34, that's it. All right, so play 3 that we're going to look at is going to be duo from an unbalanced formation. And I know I've been letting them play before we talk about them, but I do want to point out a couple of things formationally and motion-wise, just some pre-snap things that I think make this work. So you'll see that this is Cameron Irving right here. Okay, so that makes this unbalanced to the left because we got center, guard, tackle, extra tackle, and then we've got a tight end on this side too. Okay, so because of that, we see, like, this is the center, this is the backer. We got 3 backers on this side, and I think this is a nickel corner, not an actual backer here, which is really interesting because of the personnel that we're in, but whatever. So we're going to motion Sullivan over here, and it's going to bump this nickel out. And all that I wanted to talk about before we actually look at the play is that it's going to create this lane where we're going to end up running through. And so we wouldn't have been able to do that if we weren't running this from unbalanced formation, causing the defense to be a little bit more this way from the snap. And then the motion brings this guy out of the way. So that's good stuff. Okay, so we'll let it play. See that? See that big gap right there? All right, we can see him moving out. All right, I'm going to take just a minute here and explain the concept of this run just because it seems like it's something that the Panthers do well. And I want everybody to be able to recognize this. And I also just like it because I've been studying up on the duo concept since it's something that I want to run with my team. So as a starting place of, say, inside zone, right, if we were running inside zone, right, the handoff's coming right here. So if it was inside zone to the left, we'd be blocking, trying to get this inside shoulder. We've covered that kind of stuff before. So with duo, it's kind of similar to running inside zone, except the opposite way. So we're going to take similar tracks, except to the opposite side. So we're handing off to the left. Duo rules, in a nutshell, are gap away. Okay, so if we're running duo left, all right, that means that every lineman is going to be responsible for the gap away from the play call, the play side. So if the play is, designed to go this way, Moton's going to have this gap, which means Corbett's going to have this gap, which means Bozeman's going to have this gap. Okay? So that is important. There's one other thing that you can recognize, but just schematically here. The end man on the line of scrimmage for the offense is always going to have something called a J block where we're sealing this play side. Everybody else is going to be following that gap away rule. Okay? So we'll see Tommy do that, but that's not really particularly important on this play. So we're going to be here. We're going to be here. And then what I think is really worth highlighting on this play is Bozeman again, which is really encouraging to me. I hope that we can lock him up on a longer-term deal because he's been really good. If you don't have somebody that's head up to outside, on the back side of the play here, then you can chip, you can help as a combo block, and then work to the backer. All right? It's easier said than done, but as we watch Bozeman do this, we're going to see him do exactly what the play calls for, help, work to backer, and we go right off of his butt. It was a really good game from Bozeman. All right, we're going to look at another duo play right here. But this time we're going to focus entirely on Icky. Okay, so we've got duo left. See, he ends up hitting a cutback lane. Well, how does that come to be? So again, if we stick with the rules of duo, we're gap away. We know that the play is to the left. It's not going to look like that, but duo left. So everybody is, if you're imagining the left sideline, everybody's a gap away from that left sideline, which means that pre-snap, this is Icky's guy, right? Well, this defender is actually going to end up coming head up on Christensen right here, which means that there's no longer an immediate threat in the gap away from Icky on the line of scrimmage. So you need to work vertically then and find somebody in your gap, or continue going away until you find somebody that can give you some work as a lineman. And Icky's going to do that. He's not going to give up on this play, and he's going to give a really strong shove on this 55 backer right here, which is the entire reason why Deontay is able to get into the end zone right there. All right, so I mentioned earlier that one of the benefits of all of the boot concepts that we run, quick flats and things like that, can work to our advantage in the run game. It doesn't always lead to explosive plays in the passing game, or really any passing game at all, but just the threat of it being so viable and so frequent in our offense can cause things like this. So we're going to see 38, I think, is going to be afraid that Ian is going to lay a block right here on Hutchinson and then flare out. So we're going to see him hang back, even though all of the outside zone lineman movement, box movement is going to the right. He doesn't follow that. There's no other explanation except for he must be afraid of a backside screen or something like that. So we watch Ian Thomas right here. He's going to lay a good block on Hutchinson for long enough before working to that backer, keeping that backer off of Deontay enough to get a good, really solid, explosive run play. Okay, this play is at a gun. First gun play that we're going to look at here. And it's going to be a simple trap or power. But what I like in particular about this, so we are going to have Brady Christensen pulling. Nothing crazy about that. And he's pulling to kick out 54 right here. Typically, something that can be a problem when you run trap series or power series is, these linemen know that they're needing to ignore that lineman that's getting trapped. And they might leave too early, which alerts this defender that, hey, something fishy's going on here. I need to be on the lookout for a pulling guard or a pulling somebody. The subtle nuance of what Corbett and Moten do right here, is they hesitate. They're patient. Patience is everything. And they show hands, which kind of offers up a distraction to 54 so that he doesn't realize that there's a pulling guard until it's too late and he's already engaged with that block. And then we're going to see Corbett right here does a good job sealing his backer, and somehow Moten does a good job from this angle of gaining inside leverage on Rodrigo here to create this seam for this play to run straight through. It's beautiful stuff. All right, next gun play, we're going to have trips left, speed option right. There's a couple things I like about this setup before we even get into the play. First off, the fact that it's trips left, this isn't an accident. This is important. Similar to how we looked at the unbalanced play earlier, it causes the defense to react a certain way. They obviously have to adjust for however many people we have on a certain side. So we've got 1, 2, 3 defenders over here that we've taken to this left side of the field. When we're running speed option is all about isolating defenders in space and trying to make them wrong depending on what they do. So basically, we want to have as few defenders on this side as possible, and we'll see we only have 2 on the play that we're running, or on the side that we're running to with the speed option. So how speed option works, we'll go ahead and let this play out. How speed option works is you want to attack that end man on the line of scrimmage, and Sam does a really good job of that. You'll see this play fail sometimes because quarterbacks will take an angle maybe they're scared of getting hit or something, I don't know. But when they take an angle more like this, it reduces the space between them and the running back. So it makes it a lot easier for one defender to play both. No. We want to come straight at this end man on the line of scrimmage, make him choose between us or the pitchback. Okay, so we're going to do that. I also want to point out, formationally, another good thing by McAdoo here. I like that since we're reading this end man on the line of scrimmage, that means Ian obviously can't block that guy, or this wouldn't make sense. So instead, while everybody else is blocking down, Ian's going to have to come out here and get a corner. And this is another example of us, Ian doesn't always necessarily do the best job in the run game or blocking on defensive ends and people that are more his size, but he's done a really good job today blocking smaller players, corners, getting him out in space. And so I like the matchup advantage that this formation presented. Okay, last two plays that we're going to look at here. They're both going to be the exact same play from different but similar formations. And I want to point out some formation stuff here. We'll see this trips bunch right down here. 3-by-1, but we're spread out. Okay? This is important because we're trying to run really right here or right here. And so by not being in a heavy set like we use a lot of the time, by spreading out this bunch, again, we bring these three defenders out here, which is going to, we'll see everybody's blocking down. This is a zone read play, so zone read left. And that is going to isolate Hutchinson in space more so than if there was a tight end and a fullback and some different things like that, because we've got all these guys out here. Okay, so we'll let it play. Moten did a great job washing that whole pile down. Nobody even had to work to the inside backers because they bit so hard on this zone fake, on this the zone portion of the zone read here. They come, get washed out of the play by Moten here. And then that's isolating Hutchinson in space like we talked about. And Sam does a really good job riding the mesh point on this play, basically meaning holding on to it and riding this kind of track as long as he can before he pulls it, to the point that I really think that with how good of a job Moten did and how the linebackers got out of the way, we probably could have handed this off or kept it and we should have scored. But here's one thing that really just irritated me about this play. As a coach, if I'm watching this in a film room with my players, I'm getting on to Chuba about this. Because to me, the reason this play doesn't score is on Chuba. So when you are running a zone read like this, and the player doesn't get the ball, you can do two things. You can either turn into a blocker and go get this safety, or you can really sell that you have the ball to try to hold that safety. So you're like running hard, you're low, you're covering up like so that the defenders can't see if you have the ball or not. And you're running hard so that the safety comes at you and isn't able to focus so much on the quarterback. Watch Chuba right here. He just turns around and looks at the quarterback. Safety ends up making the tackle. Should have been a touchdown. All right, again, this is the last one that we're going to look at. And like I mentioned in the last play, this is basically the exact same thing. The only subtle difference is that this trips bunch isn't in a typical bunch look. And I guess that's just more or less window dressing so that the Detroit Lions don't pick up on, hey, we saw this already. We know that we've got zone read coming. But I wanted to throw this in there. I mean, you can watch Moten here. He does a good job washing this down again. You can watch Sam do a good job of riding this mesh point again and holding this edge defender right here just long enough for Deontay to get by. All that's great. But really, I just wanted to put this in to reinforce, as fans, when we're watching the game, you can start to recognize, hey, we got 1, 2, 3 by 1, the one being up here, spread out. I know that the Panthers like to run zone read from this formation. So you can start impressing your friends a little bit by pointing out tendencies like that. And this is the kind of stuff the defenses are looking at too. You can better believe that the Bucks next week are going to be recognizing formations like that and being prepared for zone read out of those looks. So that's it. We covered all the explosive plays in the run game that the Carolina Panthers had. I hope you really enjoyed it. I know this. If the Carolina Panthers are going to make the playoffs, these explosive plays in the run game are going to have to continue because the pass game still isn't there. The defense has stepped up some, but now J.C. Horn is out. If the Panthers have any chance of making it to the playoffs and doing anything in the playoffs, it is going to have to be on the back of this extremely strong and potentially sometimes explosive run game.